Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. I am sitting here today by myself, but on the other side of the screen is Daniel Brown. Daniel is a former coworker of mine, I guess. We worked at the same big company for a while, but we shared a friend, a good friend, Jim Hunger, who I miss very much. He's no longer with us, but Daniel, you and I have gone out and seen some live music around the Seattle area with Mr. Hunger kind of leading he was the ringleader of those type of events. Always introduced me to some really cool music, and you're a music fan. But that's not why we're here today. Daniel, you are doing something that I don't know much about, but I saw it was really kind of cool. It's got to do with skateboarding. So why don't you introduce yourself and let's talk skateboarding and what you're doing with it.
Alrighty. Yeah, and we did see some great music together, and somebody should pick back up that invite list.
Absolutely.
It died off during the lockdown, but it's time to revive it.
Well, let me interrupt you then. I'm going to interrupt you. Have you been to any good shows lately?
Let's see. Bumbershoot with its return, even though it was only 2 days. Bomba Stereo was great. Saw another great local band, another great indie band called Warpaint, and and then Slater Kenny came back. They have a new album out now, and so it was really pretty cool to introduce my teenage daughter to that as well. She just basically went off and saw a bunch of bands, and we did too.
That's cool. The last great show I've seen was Christy McWilson and as the Pickets, and Dave Alvin was the special guest who showed up and played like 4 or 5 songs with him, and it was at Slim's Last Chance.
Oh, and man, I'm jealous.
That place was on fire. It was the most energy. I got to sit down and talk to Dave for a while before the show. He autographed a book that he wrote for me, and to see Dave Alvin back up on stage was just like and with Christy McWilson's. There's just so much energy between the two of them. It was great.
Oh, yeah.
Slim's was overcrowded. It was supposed to be an outdoor show, but it started raining that day. And so it was like we were all shoved into the little, into Slim's Last Chance. And the place was on fire. So we had music, and you're right, or that invite list should be resurrected. I love that. Count me in next time there's good music. We'll come over for it. Now, what got you going on the skateboard thing? Talk to us about this a little bit.
All right. So 4 years old. We're going way back here.
We're going back.
4 years old. Go to my friend Travis's house. He has a skateboard that's down in or near Olympia. And I hop on it, immediately fall down and skin my hip and cry and do all that caterwauling. And then come back the next day, and I'm like, I gotta tame this thing. I'm like 4 years old. It was the first thing I really truly remember. And the joke is that I've been doing this almost as long as I've been breathing, walking, or running. But it was that moment where, okay, this is something I want to do, but I immediately failed at it. So started there, and that's kind of followed me throughout life, picking up complex things that I want to fail at so that I can learn about them. I still have my original skateboard, by the way.
Do you really? Do you ever ride it?
It's rideable. I can.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I'm a little over the weight limit probably it was designed for. Little plastic double kick 1976, I think, freeformer board. And it still sits in my garage along with a bunch of other things that I've accumulated through the years. But if you're speaking specifically about the Skateboards for All. That was sitting on the couch during a summer day during lockdown, and I'm like, should I read a book or should I start a charity? And I decided the latter on that particular day.
That's quite the debate. Read a book, charity. Okay, all right. So skateboards for all. Besides being locked down, besides being a summer day, and besides you didn't have a book that caught your attention, what's the motivation? What was the spark that got you going with this? Why skateboards? And yeah, why are skateboards the vehicle for this?
Um, so there are plenty of books that caught my attention, including ones about skateboarding, by the way. But the the uh, the impetus for it really was there's a gentleman by the name of Troy Nebecker who I met through the stand-up paddleboarding community, who ran for years he's a graphic designer and ran for years a charity called Monster in Sea. And what he would do is pass the hat, gather up money. His wife had had cancer and come out of it, and he was inspired to pass the hat and give people whatever money he could get, no questions asked. Here's an envelope. I know you're
Mm-hmm.
fighting a battle. Here's something to do. So that was the genesis of it, and it had been kind of bouncing around in my head for a while. Then there's a gentleman named Craig Hanaumi, who's a Hawaiian who is a cop in Bellevue who uses skateboards as a way of outreach. And he skateboards with the kids and does all that stuff. And so between the two of them, I called him on that very summer day and said, hey, what do you guys think about this? And the reason it's skateboarding and not something else, there's certainly many hobbies and things like that that I could use to provide people that
Mm-hmm.
need them. But skateboarding is one of those activities that it's artistic expression. It doesn't require coaches. It's also a literal vehicle, not just a vehicle for those things.
Mm-hmm.
So people can use it to get around, but there's a lot of kids that can't afford them. And then the other person I should give credit to is a gentleman by the name of Rodney Rodriguez, who has the same thing going at a much larger scale in my birth town of Fresno, California. And he's given out some 3,000 boards to kids in
Wow.
need. And so I asked him, hey, could I start a chapter up here? He's 501c. He's like, not really. So I was like, okay, what do you suggest? And so all three of the people I just mentioned suggested, just be a good Samaritan. Just see what you can get for cash. See what you
Mm-hmm.
can get for older donations. They gave me advice. And so we started out with getting used donated gear from people who wanted to walk in their 70s, unlike me, if I'm still on boards, right? And we started there. A couple local shops kicked in and still do kick in discounts or notify me when they have equipment that I can pick up, and then I just act as a vehicle to distribute it. So in effect, I get to live my teenage dream of having a bunch of skateboard gear in the house, and then I give it away.
That's really kind of a cool story. I too fell off a skateboard, never got back on. They terrify me, man. I do not have the balance. I think they're cool. I think a lot of things are cool, like motorcycles are cool. Once again, they're not for Scott. But you're doing this, so what's the criteria? What you're giving these away? Who, and you're targeting kids, but how are you selecting them, and how do you do outreach, and how do they find you, and what's the criteria for you to help them out with a board or with some gear?
The criteria right now is pretty much local, so local to the Seattle area. I started out, the title of it is Skateboards for All because that's the goal, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what I found is that I was spending a lot of money shipping boards to Columbus, Ohio, and things like that. So I decided to focus locally,
Okay.
and worked with youth care here at the Orion Center down by REI here in Seattle. A guy who I didn't know I had a connection with, who's a longtime skateboarder as well, Eugene Quab Copeland, who's now working, I think, for the city of Seattle or the county. But he and I connected, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we could always use boards." And so that gave me my channel to get to people, and that happened
Okay.
because I was in happenstance. I was buying gear for my daughter for Christmas up at 35th North on Capitol Hill, and he's like, "Hey, we do stuff with these guys. They'd probably be interested in that." And so it's just been connection after connection. Some people I've known and hadn't seen for years. But that's
Mm-hmm.
really how it is that it's youth care, and there's a company called Kind Kids in Need of Defense.
Mm-hmm.
And Jenna is the name of a woman there that reached out because she saw Instagram posts and the site and said, "Hey, can you help us out?" And so we're able to help her out as well,
Okay.
and their clients.
To this point, how many boards have you been able to give away?
Probably in the neighborhood of about 170.
Wow. Okay.
I haven't
All
counted.
right.
I haven't been keeping a strict count the last couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Just get what I can and give it out. But somewhere in the neighborhood of about 170 boards
Okay. And
since
how long?
2021.
2021. So in the last 3 years, so about, let's say, 50 to 60 boards a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you aspire to? For this? If this were firing on all cylinders for you, in the sense, I'm not saying it's not, but like, what's the vision? What's the grand vision for you?
So the grand vision, before I jump into that, it isn't firing all cylinders. This past year, a lot of economic uncertainty, a lot of stuff, was the lowest years for donations, financial donations. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciated those that I got, but they were much fewer and further between, despite doing the same advertising marketing of it. So a lot of this came
Mm-hmm.
out of pocket. But the grand vision would be that we have a method of influx of cash, in order to purchase purchase the gear and get it out to the kids um, in the world of Fresno Skateboard Salvage, which is Rodney's gig. He works as a trucker and visits prisons, drops off boards. They paint them, they auction them, and then they use that money. So he has
Oh, that's
that that vehicle. That's not necessarily what I'd be able to do because I'm not out on the road that often. But
right. Right.
firing firing on all cylinders, I'd love to have more money coming in on a regular basis so that this would just be self-sustaining and not cyclical. Right now, it's pretty much Christmas, and in springtime, we get some boards out to people, and anytime people can ask for gear, it's not just completes, it's decks, bearings, trucks. Like, you tell us what you need and we'll try to get it. And sometimes just go out to skate park, and if we have gear, we just hand it out to the people that are there, and tend to visit places where there's more financial instability.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the ability to help with like maintenance of a board? In other words, do you sit down and help a kid learn how to maintain their board if they don't know? Or, like you said, there's, trucks and wheels and things like that. So, I mean, is there an educational component to the board itself that you guys can help with?
Yeah, there's not. That's not that heavy right now because I'm an army of one.
Right,
But
right.
that is a goal to have. And we've done it a couple of times where we'd go out to um, community events and things like that, and set up shop and talk to kids about boards and explain how to maintain them, and what the parts are, and let people
Mm-hmm.
ride them and things like that.
Okay.
There's a ton of stuff out there that's that's available online with regard to that. But a lot of times it really helps to do hands-on type
Yeah.
activity.
I can watch YouTube all day and I still don't understand what they're trying to tell me to do. So, but you sit down with me and you go, hey, this is, oh, now now I make the connection. But that's really cool. I like the idea that the Fresno guy of doing, partnering with inmates to do art and then auctioning it off as a fundraiser. I got some ideas I'll share with you when we're not recording, because I don't want to say something and then have it blow back on me in a bad way. And if it works out, then you can take all the credit. So, if you were firing on all cylinders the way you envision this, would you just stay local, or would you begin to ship boards? Would you expand out a little bit, or do you feel like this project, this idea is just better served in the local Puget Sound area?
I think, the big, hairy, audacious goal is, I didn't name it Skateboards for All for no reason. If you think
Okay.
about like Jeff Bezos naming, buying relentless.com, I'm not comparing myself to him at any rate,
Right.
but
Right.
I would love to be able to warehouse and work with suppliers that could where we could warehouse this stuff and ship it out to anybody who needed it. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, we'd have to have a tighter control on who gets what and how to vet out the need. But folks like Skates Like a Girl or those type of organizations have started out in the same way: start out local, build it up, and then get to a space where they're educating folks, providing gear, providing contacts, all those things. So firing on all cylinders, I'd love to have it all encompassing. Just not
Mm-hmm.
there right now.
Okay. So right now, Christmas and spring, kind of the big seasons for you. So as we're recording this, it's not Christmas, and it's certainly not spring here in Wenatchee. It's got snow on the ground. What are you doing right now to kind of gear up for the spring? And how do you go about your fundraising, and how can we help like spread the word for you? Tell us more.
Well, doing this is helping spread the word. It's been a long time since I've been a guest on a podcast to talk about what I'm doing. That's always helped. The fundraising is generally out to the public, posting it on, primarily Instagram, directing people to a site. There's Venmo and PayPal that they can donate
Mm-hmm.
or arrange gear to be sent to me. We've done that in the past before, where we accepted gear from people as far away as Rochester, New York,
Oh
and
wow.
Columbus,
Okay.
Ohio.
Okay.
So those avenues are always available, always present. And then through my work I work at a coffee giant, Starbucks, and we've had a lot of folks. I'll put out the word to the folks in that space, and generally some donations come from there as well.
That's cool. I'm gonna pause you. I always ask this question later on in the episode. I'm gonna ask you earlier. All right, you're in the Seattle area. Where's a great? I'm going to drive over. I'm going to paint the scenario. I'm going to drive over from Wenatchee. I love coffee. So where's a great place that I should go for coffee?
Let me answer that question with a question. What kind of coffee
Sure.
experience are you looking for?
I am a black coffee or a pour over guy. I'm not. I don't want my coffee with oat milk. I don't. I like. Shots of espresso are good. I'm just a very simple, old school coffee drinker.
Alrighty. So first one's going to be a little surprising, and I have a
Okay.
story to go with that.
Okay.
Tutabella on Stone Way
Yeah.
has a manual espresso maker. You serve as the
Yeah.
piston. I've tipped twice to three times as much my shots of espresso because the people know how to use it, and I had to tell them that too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's an art, and not too
Mm-hmm.
many people know how to do it, and I've had plenty of bad shots. So that's kind of an unusual thing, not for the ambiance, but if you just want to go have that experience. If you
Okay.
want to go the full kind of pour over route, there's a lot of places that do it. The roastery and the reserve stores on Capitol Hill and at the SSC. There's plenty of Starbucks partners that make incredible cups of coffee in those ways. Let's see, locally, good cup of black coffee. Right here, and not too far in my neighborhood, there's a couple of places that have shut down over time. Cafe Ventoux was a great place to go. They roasted on site. They shut down a while ago, but there's a place called Revolutions over in the Green Lake Roosevelt area that also does a great pour over, and they know their
Okay.
coffee. And I don't know where he's at, but right across the street from the Angry Beaver, Seattle's original hockey bar, was a place called Neptune that blew up because of a gas explosion. But the gentleman there, Balthazar, you can find him under the Neptune Coffee on Instagram. He really knows his coffee. He once I ordered something and he said, "Hey, no. You can't. I'm not going to serve you that because I got to serve you this." And it was a coffee that was
Oh,
effervescent and had an essence of mint. And I will spend my life chasing down what that George Howell Estates coffee was because I want to
okay.
experience that again. And I
All
haven't
right.
been able to find it.
So I got a couple of questions that actually I'm going to tell you, share a Starbucks reserve story with you. So Jim Hunger says, we got to go. I got to take you. I'm going to go to the roastery. We go down there. And I think by the time I left that day, I spent like $300. Starbucks is very good. Starbucks, the experience is like the best and worst of Vegas and Disney at the same time. There's no clocks in there. You can spend a lot of money. I mean, they've dialed it in. It's brilliant. But the most magical thing I had, we did a couple of siphon presses. Those are cool. I ended up buying a siphon press. That's a cool visual way to make coffee. Like that's a cool thing. But I had their whiskey aged Guatemalan cold iced, and they served
Yeah.
it like in a glass, like from an old fashioned glass with one single ice cube. And I think that may be the single most delicious thing I've ever had in my life, whether it's coffee or anything. It was amazing. And Jim was just kind of cackling because he knew I would like it. And I ended up buying some coffee for to take, and I gave him a bag of it, and I gave his mom a bag of it, because I really appreciated it. And I brought it home, and no matter what I could do, I could not duplicate that. It was not good at home, but it was amazing there. And
Yeah.
that's like a tourist experience that if you go to Seattle or to Chicago, I don't want to go to the one in Chicago. That's where I want to go. I want to see it in Chicago.
We should do another one of these on coffees because I got to go to
Oh,
all of them over the course of the last year.
yeah, that's unfortunate for you.
For work. Yeah, it was
I
really
know.
terrible. And
Well,
Jose de Alsacia in Costa Rica.
oh my gosh. All right. So what's your go-to coffee drink when you go out for coffee? What do you like?
My go-to is either like in the winter, it tends to be like either a double tall mocha with a single pump of chocolate,
Okay.
or a double short cappuccino. And for the rest of the year, that's when I go out. Other than that, it's going to be like clover, shots of espresso. Um, those the cappuccino and the mocha are kind of standards throughout my career, but the shot of espresso or clover is probably more my go-to for the majority of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still one of those hot coffee drinkers too, so
Yeah.
I'll drink them
Yeah.
both, but I just like my coffee warm. I'm weird
So
like that.
what, we're going to put you on the spot about Starbucks. What's your favorite Starbucks coffee?
Mm. First favorite. Well, I got a story. So we're delving
Okay.
into coffee pretty deep here.
That's
But
all right. That's the essence of the show, to be honest. Skateboarding was just the trick to get you in to talk. No, just kidding. We'll
sweet.
come back.
The first coffee I ever thought tasted like something other than coffee, mostly because I smoked cigarettes at the time and drank coffee from Denny's. The first time I remember tasting a coffee and going, "Wow, this is different," was Costa Rica Tres Rios,
Okay.
which we have in small batches now because it's a small farm. And when I got to go on the origin experience down to Costa Rica last year, I met the guy who'd been exporting it for 30 years, and it was just one of those mind-blowing aha moments. Like, you and I have been indirectly connected for years, and you're handing the business over to your daughter, and wow, it was just one of those cool moments.
Right. Right.
In general, it's Sulawesi. When I hit my 25-year anniversary, a couple of our roasters, I asked them to roast it, and in their words, they said, "We roast coffee for people we don't like enough. We'll roast some for you." It's like, "Does that mean you
Okay.
like me?" And they're like, "We don't want to go that far," but it's Sulawesi, or
Sulawesi. Okay.
Celebes.
Okay. All right. All right. So, what coffee pairs with skateboarding?
Honestly, probably an iced Americano.
All
Because
right.
the last thing you want to do when you're, sessioning somewhere, be it a curb or ramp, hanging out with friends, more often than not, especially in Seattle, it's going to be warm. The last thing you want to do is reach for a hot coffee. Um,
Yeah.
on the way to the park curb or downhill session, probably a shot of espresso. But once I get there, probably an iced Americano, just something I can slug real quickly,
Okay.
or black coffee in a thermos.
Black coffee in a thermos. All right. Solid. Solid. All right. I'm still intrigued this skateboarding thing. I love the idea. To me, okay. I don't skateboard. I said that earlier. And I don't know. I mean, the only skateboarder I can think of is Tony Hawk, which, is if I think every American knows the name Tony Hawk. Actually, that's not true. There's who's the actor that played My Name is Earl? Do you know who I'm talking
Oh,
about?
Jason Lee.
He was a
Jason
skateboarder
Lee.
before he was a skateboarder
Yep.
before he became a. I saw that somewhere in a bio. So okay, what, in your opinion, in general, what's the appeal? What's the draw to skateboarding? Why is it such a? I don't want to call it a cult. I don't mean it like that, but it's like it's got this appeal to this segment of the culture. Why?
That's a deep question. Oh, by the way, Jason Lee is probably a bit more of a deep cut than most people know. Like, people may listen to that and go, "I'll be damned. He really was a professional skateboarder and very talented, I might add."
Okay.
Uh, to tie back to live music, Matt Hensley, now of Flogging Molly, was
Yeah.
also a professional skateboarder.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
but
There's also
the
a
appeal,
guy who's in the motivational space that I think was a skateboarder too, and I can't think of his name. I can see his face, but I
yeah.
can't think of his name. Okay. Anyway, go on.
I think to me, the appeal to me as a kid was the same as like bike riding or what have you. It's freedom.
Mm-hmm.
It's how to get around. Quite frankly, it was also a skateboarder magazine, and that image of the California lifestyle and being a Central Valley kid. That was
Mm-hmm.
what I aspired to. And then when I moved to, by the time it went back underground, so I started in the mid '70s on its high rise, and then by
Mm-hmm.
the time 1980 hit, it was punk rock. It was counterculture. It was all of those things. That's when Thrasher magazine came about, and I still had a couple of boards that I rode, but I was like, that is what I want to be a part of. And the folks that I was hanging with, um, we were listening to the Dead Kennedys, and like the first two albums I bought were Iron Maiden and Black Flag Damaged. And shortly thereafter, I got my first real skateboard, so that's ages 10 and 11.
Okay.
But I think that still holds true. There's a counterculture element to it, and again, there's no need for a coach. You just go out and do. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a community, right? So you go to a skate park, and generally people are going to be supportive. Older skaters are going to be like, hey, you want to do that, to everybody but people who ride scooters. Not that I have a problem with people riding scooters, but they're the
Mm-hmm.
people who are getting the short end of the stick at the skate park right now. But I think that that still appeals to people, that community, that ability to express yourself, the fact that it's also a mode of transportation. And even though it's in the Olympics now, it's still not, like the other sport that's near and dear to me. It's not like hockey, where it's very reserved and reticent and all of those things. It's kind of what you want to make of it is skateboarding. If you want to go bomb a
I
hill at 100 miles an hour, great. If you want to go hit the skate park, great. If you want to take it down to the 7-Eleven, if those still exist, great.
I did not know that skateboarding was an Olympic sport now. Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Tokyo.
Really?
Now it has
Huh.
trainers and all of that, all the
Wow.
accoutrements that go around it.
So I had a guest on and a coffee roaster, and they only roast decaf. So it's an interesting thing out in Sultan area. And interesting. Went over. I actually met them in person. Went over to their little roasting setup. Very small. Nothing like what I saw at Starbucks. And his hobby. Now this is a guy who's my age, and he works at Microsoft in some managerial capacity. He does longboarding, but there's a competition in Maryhill down in Goldendale. Have you heard about this?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
He,
Maryhill's
he
one of the. It's like Waimea for longboarders. Well, for downhill longboarders.
yeah, that's his thing. I mean, like that's what he does. That's his relaxation, his fun, and he's got young girls and preteen and early teens, and they're doing this, and they're and they do luge down it too, and they're I'm just like, okay. But he was saying, 60, 70 miles an hour down the hills. But what he told me that I thought was interesting. Have you ever been there to this course that is there?
Oh yeah, if you've ever gone
Okay.
to the Golden Dell Observatory
Yeah.
um, or
It's the museum, isn't it?
the Sam Hill
Yeah.
Stonehenge, it's
Yeah.
right there. It's the loopy road that you take
Right.
up. Is that they bombed down in
So
full leathers and
what he told me, the guy who built that building at the top was in the concrete business. And that road is made out of different types of concrete. They were testing concrete. So it's built differently than most roads are. And that's one of the appeals to it, is that it's constructed a lot differently than, a current highway in Washington State, which, you're taking your life into your hands if you're skateboarding on one of those. So anyway, I just, yeah. And he's helmets and leather gear. And, I'm like, oh my God, you guys are crazy. And you just mentioned bombing down a hill, and that kind of jogged my brain. So what's your go-to? What do you like to do on a board?
um, a little bit of the above, except for bombing down hills. And I do want to get the contact info of that guy for both the coffee connection and the skateboarding. Um,
Okay.
but but for me, it's a mode of transportation. Like I'll take my
Okay.
longboard to work, park the car, throw on a helmet, and skate the last mile into work,
Mm-hmm.
and just as an escape, um, and some slalom stuff like that. Um, it's more transportation,
Okay.
in with regard to the longboard, and just kind of an escape. And then
Mm-hmm.
during lockdown, I bought a couple of quarter pipes for our backyard and started riding transition again on a regular basis, which was really fun at that point. So there's a little bit of that too.
Okay.
A little bit more careful about what I do at age 53 than I was at age 20 or
So
even 30. But
what's the worst accident you've ever had?
concussion. I spent Christmas of here we go. I'm forgetting it because I had a concussion.
Because of the
Um,
concussion.
I spent Christmas of 1985 in a hospital because I was coming down a hill toward my house and my dogs ran out and tabletopped me. Like one hit me right behind the knees and took me down. The next thing I remember, I was knocking on my door and
Oh,
I went to the hospital, said, "Hey, I feel fine." And later that night, I was chatting with a guy I was supposed to skate with the next day. He was like one of the only skateboarders in Seattle or in the Auburn area at the time.
uh-huh.
And I was like, I don't think I'm going to make it. And then I went to the hospital.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. That's, I mean,
Other
concussions are scary. I don't mean to dismiss them, but uh, fractured arms and legs and skulls happen a lot of times too. So, um,
Yeah, nothing,
yeah.
nothing that bad. Other than that, it's just been, the occasional dislocation, or mostly it's just been scrapes, bumps, bruises, no
Okay.
ruptured spleens, which is pretty common with vertical skaters.
Oh my God. Now you mentioned I can't remember. You have a daughter, but do you have more than one kid?
Yeah, I have a
Uh,
daughter who's 15 and a sophomore in high school, and I have a son who's 22 and is applying for grad school
Okay.
in
Do
poli
either of them
sci.
skate? Geez. Do either of them skateboard?
No, they both tried it. I think the very same thing that attracted me to it,
Mm-hmm.
because we moved everybody back in during lockdown. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we have these ramps, we have boards, let's do it. And they're like,
Right. Right.
and they have their own boards and stuff like that. And neither one of them really jumped on it. They'll do it occasionally, but mostly, mostly their boards just sit around.
Okay. Now your daughter, you mentioned hockey earlier, which we're gonna touch on hockey during this conversation too, because that's another thing that you're into.
How
That's
much time
kind
do
of
we have?
we have unlimited time. It's digital tape. We got all the tape in the world. But um, let's wrap up the board thing. So what I want you to tell me is specifically where can people find you online? Where do you want them to go? Instagram, is that the best way? Where's the best place to find you if they want to know more about what you're doing, or if they have the ability and interest in helping?
I think Instagram is probably the easiest because people
Okay.
are on it. Um, and outside of that, I would
And
say
what's the
our
handle?
site.
What's the handle on Instagram?
It's SK, the number eight, S for all. So skates for all.
And four spelled out, or is it four ALL?
Yeah, four is spelled out. It gets confusing because on the site it's not.
Okay. And what's the website address?
Uh, the website address is skateboards, the number four, all.org.
Okay. I'll put those
Let
on
me
the show
make sure
notes.
I'm
I'll double check you. Folks,
cool.
go look at the show notes. Don't trust Daniel. Just go look at the show notes. We'll get you the right address
Yeah,
so
don't
people
trust
can
me. I
find out
had a
more about.
concussion.
Yeah, he had a concussion years ago, and anyway, all right. So that's really cool, and I'm glad you're doing that. I think it's a really cool thing, and uh, it sparks a couple of ideas in my brain we'll talk about later. But the other thing so I know you and I know each other because, like I said, mutual coffee and music thing. So we got that. But then I also know, because Jim told me, and I've seen you post about it too. You're into hockey for some reason, and what I'm noticing is this trend. You don't like to walk. You want to either skate or roll around on a board. And I don't know what you got against walking. No, just kidding. But what got you into hockey? The concussion?
There's no. Um, the the there's a connection there as well. The same person who I started skateboarding with and listening to punk rock with
Mm-hmm.
was his early transplant, meaning early in his life transplant to Fresno from Minnesota.
Okay.
So he both skateboarded. His name was Jason Verts. Lost contact with him years ago, but he played ice hockey and kind of taught me the rudiments of it. And we skateboarded all the time together.
Okay.
And so I got into it because of that, and then moved up here. My dad was running his own business, and it's like, I don't have the ability to drive you across borders and around the tri-state area to play hockey. I said, okay, wrestling and skateboarding it is. And there a
Okay.
decision was made. Then my daughter started playing, I started volunteering for the organization, and then I got tired of driving to rinks and not having the ability to play. And walking, walking, maybe it's, the Southern Californian in me, nobody walks anywhere.
Nobody walks in LA. Um,
Exactly.
okay. So your daughter's playing hockey, and you mentioned the organization. What organization is her team involved with?
Her team, she plays and I coach for and served on the board of Western Washington Wild is the name of
Mm-hmm.
the teams, but it's the Washington Wild. But it's Western Washington Female Hockey Association.
And there seems to be, well, okay, the Kraken brought, yes, Seattle's had the Thunderbirds, and we've got, there's been a lot of junior hockey in the region for a long, long, long time. But when the Kraken, came to town and up to all the buzz, they did a really good job, in my opinion, of creating buzz for a quote unquote new sport. And I think they did an excellent job introducing the sport into the consciousness of the community. That, and they went and put, was it 3 rinks up the old Northgate Mall area they've got now, that
Yep.
skating. Yeah. Okay. So they've invested in some infrastructure. Hockey rinks are not cheap. They take maintenance, all of these things. But what I've been aware of more is that there's more I know I'm wrong, but this is how I feel. There's more women playing hockey amateur than there are men right now. It's like women's hockey has become a thing.
You're not wrong.
Is that pent up aggression? They want to, I don't know, I'm kidding, but it's like, why do you think your daughter was attracted to hockey?
So birthday is July 27th, not that I need you to remember it, but so oftentimes that's one of the hotter days of the year. And so
Yeah.
as little kids, we'd go ice skating. I'd go, it'd be shorts and a t-shirt, and I'd go up to the old, unfortunately now gone Highland Ice Arena.
Yeah.
And we'd skate around. And she really liked ice skating, took lessons. And then one day we were skating around Highland, and she saw the flyer for Western Washington Female Hockey Organization, or WUFA as we call it. And she said, I think I could do that. My wife and I took her to the Try Hockey for Free Day, which every organization has.
Mm-hmm.
Ran into somebody from Starbucks, so there was another connection. And
Right.
she came off the ice with an ear-to-ear grin. This is at age 6.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
and I looked at my wife and said, we've just became hockey parents. Let me kind of tell you what that's about.
We're
And
broke. We're going to be broke.
at least we're not goalie parents.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Okay.
That's a whole different story, but you're not wrong. The fastest growing segment in USA Hockey, and I believe in Hockey Canada, but specifically within USA Hockey, is female hockey participation.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. It's blown up over the last few years, and uh, there's a camaraderie and a teamwork to it. And I much prefer the women's game to the men's game because it's just a different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So coaching these young women and young non-binary players has been really eye-opening because it's made me fall in love with the sport that I fell out of love because of all the kind of jockishness that you
Mm-hmm.
see
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of team sports like that.
Okay. That's pretty cool. And then, so does your daughter, is she playing at I don't know what the name of the facility is up there, the old Northgate area? Is that where this is taking place mostly? Is that home
Yeah,
ice?
that is home ice for us. For the last Washington Wild team to be practicing out of there, to be titled the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, as you alluded to, there's not a lot of ice rinks around here.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the junior Kraken grows their program, a lot of people lost ice time. And so we banded together with Seattle Junior Hockey Association and created a set of teams called the Seattle Red Hawks, which is an amalgamation or a merger of Western Washington female hockey and Seattle Juniors. But yeah, that's our home ice. So we get
Okay.
to practice on the same ice as the Kraken do sometimes.
Hmm.
We get to meet players that come through there. They've given the girls sticks and stuff like that. And
Well, that's cool.
last weekend, even Jack Whitehall and Michael Bublé were there shooting a movie.
Really?
Yeah, Amazon's saving costs probably because they're like, well, we own the rink. We're producing the show. We got the talent already. Let's just use our space. No, I'm being facetious, but
You're
they've just
probably
kept the
not
crowd that
wrong,
was.
though. You're probably not. I mean, seriously, that's going to be. Look, it's a business, and if we can save 15% by using our own facility, let's save 15%. I mean, you would do
Exactly.
it if,
And who
and
doesn't
I
want
would
to
do
be
it.
in a movie?
Right? Exactly. Okay. All right. Yeah, hockey is. Have you? I have not been to a Kraken game yet. Have you? Have you been?
Oh yeah, I have. I was, I think, number 847 in season tickets when they
So,
did like 32,000 within an hour. I was
what
at
am I
work and I'm
missing?
like, I gotta go.
Yeah, what am I missing?
Let me ask you this question: have you ever been to Silvertips, the Wenatchee
The
Wild, now in
Wenatchee
your
Wild.
neighborhood?
Yep, Wenatchee Wild. I've been to one Wenatchee Wild uh, experience, and it was before it was last year, so they weren't in the WHL at that time. They were the only American team in a junior Canadian league. So
Yeah,
they've
yeah. I
moved
think it
up,
was the
if you will.
BCHL, like the
BCHL,
BC
yes,
Hockey League.
exactly, right. And now
Um,
they're in the WHL and doing quite well, by the way. To rub it in.
yeah, yeah, it's great. Um, yeah, well, Seattle won last year, but they are in a world of hurt this year. And really, they're not Seattle, they're Kent.
There can't.
But I
Yeah,
digress. The If you've ever been to a game, I think what you're missing is in junior hockey, you have kids, 16. They're like my daughter's age, 16 to 20,
mm-hmm.
and the precision isn't there, the size and speed isn't there. There's a lot of impressive stuff happening on the ice, and I love junior hockey for that. But with the NHL and the PWHL for the women's hockey league, which doesn't have a team in Seattle yet, but I have another friend who's working on that diligently. So if you want
Okay.
her information, I'll throw it out
Uh,
there. Um, but it's the speed and finesse of the game.
mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, for the Seattle Kraken, um, it is the environment that they play in. Climate Pledge Arena
Mm-hmm.
is has a great environment to watch hockey in.
Right.
Players, coaches, um, folks have come around over the course of the years and that they've been in the few years they've been in existence and said the same thing. It's a great place to go. And then luckily enough, we got the Winter Classic this past year too, which was
Right.
pretty impressive
Did
on
you
its own
were
scale.
were you able to attend that?
I was only because I volunteered for it.
Okay, so I'm going to call it Safeco because it's always going to be
That's
Safeco to
fine.
me. I saw Tom Petty there, and I love Safeco for baseball as a concert venue. It was not I can pass. How was it for hockey?
Um, from the dugout when we were rehearsing, we were a group of people. They reached out to all Kraken Hockey League and others and said, "Hey, can you go impersonate the teams?" And so we did the walkouts onto the stage. And
Right.
side note, we got to see a brilliant kid whose name escapes me right now play the national anthem a la Jimi Hendrix. Just blew
Okay.
my mind. 14 years old,
Okay.
and Sir Mix-a-Lot perform out there. But
When I think
from
of
our
hockey, I think
vantage,
of Sir Mix-a-Lot.
exactly right. Well, and Hart, we got to see Hart too.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
so it was pretty impressive. But the as a hockey venue, if you're sitting up higher, I think it was, from my understanding from my friends and things like that, it was a better experience
Mm-hmm.
because we volunteered. We got tickets right down on the field, so you could see the heads of the people above the
Right.
boards. And we were mostly
Right.
watching TV with 40,000 of our closest friends. Um,
Yeah.
but it as a venue, I think up above it looked really good, especially like if you were sitting in the kind of horseshoe behind home plate.
Mm-hmm.
But we were sitting down just past the dugouts on the third base side, and it was a cool experience. Got to see Wayne
Right.
Gretzky like 4 feet from me.
Yeah.
Got to take pictures and shake hands with some of the broadcasters.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say get a seat higher up. Don't
That's
splurge
yeah.
for the closed seats.
Yeah. So you can watch everything unfold. All right. Okay. So we're gonna wrap this up. I got a couple questions I always ask my guests. So we're gonna do this. So to kind of recap, Daniel, you work for a small coffee company no one's ever heard of.
Yep.
You have a skateboard nonprofit. You coach youth hockey. You're a music fan. But what do you do in your spare time? What do you guys like to do? What do you and your wife like to do? What do you guys do when you're not? And you read a lot because that was the precursor to the nonprofit. So what do you like to do for fun?
Hike, get outdoors.
Okay.
Living in Seattle, like if we want a quick hike, we just head over to Discovery Park and go wandering around down there because it's a gym that people forget about.
Mm-hmm.
During the summers, get out near North Bend because it's also fairly close by. A
Yep.
ferry ride is always good. As my wife says, you can just see anytime you get on the water, you can see your blood pressure lower.
She's not wrong.
No.
Because it's elevated because you waited 3 hours in line for the ferry. No, just kidding.
Yeah, totally. Stand-up paddleboarding.
That's right.
I have a one wheel that I tool around on some because it's a pretty cool little invention that feels like snowboarding on concrete.
Once again, not a lot of walking here. Just pointing that out.
No, no, no. Yeah, walking is boring. And then, cycling. So again,
All right.
no walking. Actually,
Right.
hiking's a lot of walking.
Yeah, I know. I was kidding. All right. So, question I always ask. So, I'm going to get to Seattle area around lunchtime, and I need to grab food. Give me a couple of ideas of great places I should go check out for lunch in the Seattle. Down at Soto, maybe. Or, where's a good place that I need to try?
What are you looking for?
I don't. You don't. No. I'm looking for your recommendation. What are you recommending? I'm
All right.
easy to please. You're not going to say anything I'm probably going to go ew to.
I think underrated is probably marination.
Oh yeah. Okay.
The Hawaiian started out as a Hawaiian food truck, and they now have locations. You've mentioned Slim's Last Chance, which
Yep.
atmosphere and the food kind of match up. Um, hmm, Chinese food, I'd say Judy Foo's up here in the North Seattle area is kind of an
Okay.
institution, though it's only
Okay.
dine out, no more dine in. What am I thinking of? There's got to be another one.
Well, what's down by what's down in Soto? What's what let's narrow it a little bit. What's going on in Soto these days?
Not a lot. Pho
Uh,
just opened up, which is good pho and banh mi.
that was there when I worked there.
Yeah,
Are
and
they
then they closed up during lockdown, and then they
okay, so
reopened.
they've opened back up. Okay. Yeah, I used to
Yeah.
go there. That was a great place. Okay. All right.
Pecos Pit is an institution. It's
It's
a
still
gut bomb
there.
institution, but it's an
Yeah, but it's still there.
institution.
It's an institution.
It
Yeah.
is. Um,
Okay.
there's another Vietnamese place right up across from T-Mobile Park / Safeco that it's called Venison,
Venison.
and it's
Okay.
Vinison.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a pretty good job too. They don't have to in that location, but I was pretty impressed with them.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
and then kind of a go-to up north in the Edmonds area is the Rusty Pelican.
Oh yeah. All right. All right. My last question for you. You ready? This is a very important question. Every guest has to answer it in its complete entirety. Cake or pie, and why?
Pie, if cobbler is included, because it's kind of
Acceptable.
pie deconstructed.
Yeah.
And why? although I like both. Pie, have a grandma, my whole family, aside from my sister and I and our cousins, was born in Mississippi or Louisiana for hundreds of years prior to our generation. And so there's that nostalgia for eating cobbler and pie at my grandma's house. And in my opinion, there's nothing better than like a berry pie, like blackberry, marionberry, warm, but not too hot out of the oven with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on it. Cake, it gets soggy. There's too much. It's too much sugar. Like for whatever reason, the tartness of the berries and the crust and the vanilla ice cream is just chef's kiss for me.
Okay. I lied. I have one last question, but it's a question to you to answer. And the question is, what didn't I ask you that I should have brought up during our conversation today?
I don't think much. I would say if you want another interview, Women's Pro Hockey Seattle, Zoe Harris. She's a good friend, super low key. She coached in the American College Hockey Association, and there's an award named after her for the best player every year. She and her partner, Cindy Daly, started WUFA, and she's now working on getting a women's pro hockey team here in Seattle.
Okay.
John Barr, who's been featured on a number of things, started NHL to Seattle, and he got the Kraken here. He worked on it for 9 years before it happened. Another friend. And then, why am I spacing his name? The guy who runs PMA Magazine. I can find his name for you. He does a lot of good stuff here, and he was another one of those folks that I consulted with when I started the skateboard charity.
Okay.
And I didn't mention Andrew Montoya of Thrift Skate Washington.
Okay.
Which is a shop. Evo Seattle and Altogether Skate Park for giving me 30% discounts on gear. And Marshall, the biggest benefactor for us has been Marshall Reed, who runs Altogether Skate Park. And his handle on Instagram is Marshall Stacks Reed. And he helped out Skates Like a Girl, or Skate Like a Girl. And then when they were up and running, he was like, hey, I needed a new person to work with on this charity. So here, you're a great person to do that. So he's been from day one. He's been from the drop a huge supporter of me, and I didn't mention him.
Okay. Well, now you did. Well, Daniel, thank you. This has been fun for me. I think what you're doing is really, really cool. And I hope that in a small way we can help spread the word a little bit more for you. And hopefully people will check it out and find ways that they can be a part of it and contribute and help. And just keep doing it, man. We need more people that are doing cool things around Washington. There's plenty of a need for it. Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreWaState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. I'm glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.